actually like to think about building a brand a lot like building a house. You're going to need different tools in order to achieve different things. And so the reason that we have developed what we have is that there are going to be specific questions or specific decisions that need to be addressed, and making sure that you've got the right tool for the job is going to be really important. We've developed Dive, Dash, and even Spark to be able to address very specific needs for brands as they are being built and as they are scaling. That way we have effectively the right set of tools for the right job. The way that we identify what tool is in fact the right tool for the job is really driven by understanding what it is that a founder or even head of marketing is seeking to accomplish. Perhaps better said, what is the decision that they're trying to make, and or what is the information that they need in order to drive the outcome that they are after. Based on that information, we're able to identify what the right solution is. Sometimes I like to articulate this as what are the key questions. And I usually think that there are two key questions, which are what do you want to know and who do you want to know it from? And with that information, we can then identify what the right solution is and make sure that we can achieve that in the most effective and efficient way possible. So with all Dive research projects, it is 100% custom. You tell us what you want to know and who you want to know it from, and we literally build the solution to be 100% customized to what you need. As a result of that, it tends to be really, really effective for what I like to say are very in-depth projects, which is in part why we actually refer to it as Dive. Because it does deliver a high degree of depth and a high degree of customization. There are going to be times when a brand needs to address information that is highly complex, very specialized, and or custom in nature, and so that's why Dive does tend to be a really good solution for those times. Those instances may not happen as frequently as some other decisions that come across a brand's desk, if you will, on a frequent basis, but it does tend to do a really good job of diving deep when that is needed. It can have a transformational impact on the trajectory of a brand. So many of the scenarios that we address with Dive projects are things that are very strategic in nature. So as an example, who should be our target consumer and how can we best grow our brand with them over time in order to maximize our potential and certainly maximize the value of a brand. Another very common scenario is how is our brand relative to the competition in terms of what does it stand for, how is it unique, how loyal are our consumers to our brand relative to the competition, and how can we compete effectively relative to the competition. That's a scenario that also comes up very often. A third that I might mention is what is the consumer journey into the category, and how do we interact best with our consumers, certainly our target consumers, as they enter the category and how they navigate the category when they shop. All of those types of scenarios are very common, and while they may take 4 to 5 weeks to uncover or get answers to, they can have a really transformational impact on how a brand charts its strategy and how it actually grows over time. One example of a Dive project that had a really transformational impact on a brand was a segmentation study that we actually conducted for a brand called Yasso, which you may have heard of. It's actually a fairly big brand that was acquired by Unilever a few years ago. It's in the frozen novelty space, and one of the things that we did early on in our partnership with Yasso was to conduct a segmentation study, and that's really designed to identify who a key target should be for a brand. And in this particular case, we found that there was a segment, actually two segments of consumers within the market that really enjoyed utilizing frozen novelties as snacks. And so as a result of that, we recommended to Yasso that they should really reposition their entire brand and certainly their strategy around becoming a frozen snack platform. They did that, and the brand effectively exploded, going from $50 million in revenue to over $300 million in revenue over the course of just 3 years. It was that growth trajectory that actually led them to be acquired by Unilever. So that, I think, is a good example of where a dive project that did take about 5 weeks actually had a pretty dramatic and transformational impact on a brand that I'm sure that they found to be worth the time. The way that Dash actually seeks to balance speed with rigor is we've done the work to effectively automate all of the key questions that would need to be addressed. And by way of doing that, we're actually able to speed up the process and therefore deliver the type of insight that a decision maker needs in a much faster way. While that may require that there is not as much customization possible in Dash as there is in Dive, we do still have the ability to customize a few things because you're always going to have a few key questions that need to be customized. But through the automation process, we're still able to deliver the type of research that we would want to conduct in a much faster way. Because we've done the work to establish that in advance, we use question types as well as best-in-class research standards to be able to conduct that work. We're just able to speed it up through the course of technology and automation. I think one of the things that's most surprising about Spark sessions is the creativity that comes from not only the stakeholders that we engage in the process, but also from consumers themselves through the idea generation process, and more importantly, through the iteration and refinement process that we use engage consumers in. We're actually able to get to a large range of very creative ideas that I think are well positioned for consumers to respond to and even want to buy in market. To that point, that's one of the reasons why we engage consumers in the process, and I'm always very surprised at just how creative they can be. While it's true that what Steve Jobs said is that consumers will never tell you what they want, they actually are very good at reacting to stimuli and integrating their own desires into the process by way of the feedback that they can provide to the stimuli that we present to them. Through the Spark process, we have multiple, call it interaction points, in which we engage consumers with the ideas that are being created. And so while the team, meaning the stakeholders from the project team, may coalesce around a specific idea or have a lot of energy or heart for a specific idea, by showing it to consumers and getting their input and their feedback, we're able to understand whether consumers really like it or not. One of the things that I've seen, having done consumer research for a really long time, is that it is often the case that we think we are our consumers. And if there's one thing I would say is that we are definitely not our consumers. And so it's helpful to engage our consumers in the innovation process to make sure that the ideas are in fact being developed, refined, and ultimately optimized for our consumers. So an example, fairly recent example in fact, that I would highlight is there is a sleep supplement product by a brand called Natrol that is referred to as Sleep and Restore. And through the course of that concept development, we identified very key details that needed to be provided in the communication, which ultimately made it into the communication as the product was launched. You can actually see the ads online. They feature Josh Allen, the quarterback. And ultimately, much of the communication did focus on those things that consumers had identified to us as being important to them in the value equation. Well, needless to say, thanks so much for watching. And if you want to learn more, definitely subscribe.